Russia Putin News. Putin's military in Ukraine could use some help, but what could Kim Jong Un provide? Kim Jong Un, leader of North Korea, arrived in Russia this week via armored train to a hero's welcome that demonstrated how important the Hermit Kingdom has become to its neighbor. After invading Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin has found himself short on both allies and ammunition for his chafing armed forces. Concerns that Kim may agree to supply the ammunition that Moscow's war effort appears to need were highlighted by the United States' warnings about the North Korea-Russia summit. But what could Putin and his visitor hope to accomplish at the summit? The question is, what does Russia need? Putin's military is short on ammunition but fighting a conflict that is increasingly dominated by it, analysts said, despite being mired in a war he hoped would have been over many months ago. Despite its increasing global isolation, Russia is continuing to boost domestic production. Russian arms negotiations with North Korea are actively advancing, the White House warned last month, and letters promising increased cooperation between Kim and Putin have been exchanged. It was stated that artillery ammunition would most likely be targeted. It's unclear what was discussed during the unusual summit at the Vostochny Cosmodrome, but Kim may have had something his host desperately wanted. Michael Horowitz, head of intelligence at Lebec International, a security and risk management consultancy, said that Putin's wish list was fairly straightforward. Saying, "The Russian president wants ammunition," he sparked a heated debate. The fighting in Ukraine is very much driven by artillery. Simply put, if you can fire more at the enemy, you have a better chance of success, Horowitz said. White House officials have already charged that North Korea sent a significant number of artillery shells to Russia without their knowledge in 2017. However, Kim's visit could not have come at a more opportune time, as Ukraine is currently attempting to launch a counteroffensive against Russia armed with Western hardware before the onset of winter. The situation in Ukraine could become more difficult if Pyongyang were to send in new artillery. According to military historian David Silby of Cornell University, the conflict has devolved into a artillery duel, more reminiscent of the two world wars than of modern warfare, with Russia firing an estimated 20,000 rounds a day compared to 5,000 by Ukraine, whose shells are mostly supplied by the US. He claimed that North Korean shells would allow the Russians to continue to hold those lines, in the expectation that Ukraine would deplete its supply of weapons first. Experts say it's tough to tell how much ammunition the secretive state might have stockpiled and ready for shipping, or even if it's in fighting shape. Whether or not North Korea can significantly increase its production of ammunition at the request of the Kremlin is also unknown. The Kremlin would be especially interested in anti-tank missiles and two types of shells, 122 mm and 155 mm caliber munitions regularly used by Russia in Ukraine. Professor of Strategic Studies at the University of St Andrews in Scotland Phillips O'Brien speculated that North Korea would have large stocks of Russian, Soviet standard ammunition, stocks that could provide real support for the Russians, who are using ammunition at a prodigious clip. Drones, a relatively inexpensive but effective weapon aimed at weakening Ukraine's air defenses, are already supplied to Russia by Iran, another Western adversary. While Moscow may seek a military advantage, Kyiv might benefit more financially from striking a deal with North Korea. O'Brien claims that South Korea, a key Western ally, has both a large stockpile of ammunition meeting U.S. standards and the ability to produce large quantities. To avoid upsetting Russia, Seoul has thus far declined to provide lethal aid to Ukraine, but on Thursday it voiced deep concern and regret over the apparent focus on military cooperation at the summit. They may decide that if North Korea is backing Russia so openly, that they will provide similar aid to Ukraine, he continued.